Alright, first and foremost, I'm going to say all praises and honor be to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rukah, Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GreatMillStone. And shalom, man, to the sincere, hopeful, elect out there, teaching out there, man, on the highways and byways and truth and sincerity, man. And a quick point I want to speak about is what sort of things our people, the 12 tribes of Israel, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans had to experience in slavery, man. You know, and the tribes I'm a center on right now is the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And yeah, because I also found some information on Gad too, but the Northern Kingdom. But right now I'm bring out some information that I came across, which took place to the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi when they came from the west coast of Africa. And one thing that took place to our people, right, is cannibalism, man. You know, there's actually accounts in history whereby our people were under actual slave ships being cooked by their masters on the slave ships, and they were eaten by them, and some of their flesh got fed to other slaves that were on the ship. So you just imagine yourself being on a ship. It's packed, it's hot, it's sweaty, there's piss everywhere, vomit everywhere, shit everywhere, period everywhere, right? Rats everywhere, right? Corpses everywhere. You might actually be chained for weeks to a person who died a couple weeks ago, right? And on top of that, your uncle, your auntie, right, could have possibly ended up in a pot and cooked, chopped up into bits and pieces, man, into cubes, and fed to you. Now, just hearing that alone should make you feel pissed off and angry, and understand that these so-called people who call themselves white, if they go back to the sea, the Esau, they deserve no form of mercy, man. So without further ado, I'm gonna go straight into the facts, right? So this is an actual like post, right, on the University College of London, right? And this was a seminar that took place, and I'm gonna just hit a point. The Portuguese ship Arrogante was captured in late November 1833 by the HMS Snake off the coast of Cape San Antonio in Cuba. At the time of her capture, the Arrogante had more than 330 Africans on board, who had all embarked at galleons, right? It says all of them were liberated soon after the vessel reached Montego Bay, Jamaica, where soon after their arrival, a chilling mystery surrounded the alleged practices carried out by her captain and crew were also brought to the attention of the local authorities. Shortly after landing, the captain and crew were accused of killing an African man, which this guy wasn't an African, he was an Israelite. Killing an African man, cooking his flesh, and serving it to the rest of the slaves on board. Let me read that. Now, this is actual historical facts, right? And this was a seminar done by Manuel Barquia, right? Professor of Latin American History at the University of Leeds, right? And the citation here is Atlantic World, West African Warfare. Actually, this actually isn't his citation. It's a book, but I'm sure, which I've done, right? This information of this event is available on sites, man. You just have to, go forth and research it. But going back to the point, it says, right, shortly after landing, the captain, right, the captain and crew were accused of killing an African man, cooking his flesh, and serving it to the rest of the slaves on board. Additionally, they were accused of eating the heart of the murdered man. The examination of the story of what happened on the Arangante constitutes another example that the case of historians who currently claim that the atrocities committed by slavers were more common than what we ought have thought thus far. It also raises the questions of why the slavers would sacrifice whom they had hoped to sell on their arrival in Cuba, right? That's because these Edomites are devils, man. This case also highlights the questionable impartiality of Jamaican magistrates and courts and authorities at the time that coincided with the final emancipation of the slaves in the British West Indies. And the paper discusses the weight and credibility given to the testimonies received from African slaves, most of whom in this case were children. So actual kids and children testified to the event whereby a slave, right, was cooked and his flesh served to the rest of the other slaves on board, and seeing the guys on the ship, the Edomites on the ship, eating their heart and liver of this murdered man, right? And this was done by the Portuguese, man, right? Which those in particular who are, sold our people into ships, into slavery, were fucking Edomites, man, even though you got our people scattered among them. So without further ado, I'm going to read a scripture. Habakkuk 2:2 and 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Now if you go into the word upright, right, it says to be right, to be straight, upright, lawful, right? To make right. So the scripture is saying the soul of Esau, man, his spirit, right? These people who call themselves white, if they go back to see the Esau, their spirit isn't right. That's why when you go according to the history, go according to all the accounts of shit they've done to our people, you just see countless accounts of them doing shit that's just unheard of. Making Jake eat shit. You know? Feeding our kids onto alligators. You know? Hanging infants. Slicing up the stomachs of pregnant Israelites, man. And now, feeding the carcass of a man, right, to the other slaves on board, and then eating his heart and liver. Understand this. That man in particular who died, and all those others that died, their own children could have been there and eaten their own father. Now, of course, the reason why we experienced this, the 12 tribes of Israel, is because we broke the laws, statutes, and commandments, right? So the Heavenly Father put them curses upon us. However, that doesn't mean the so-called people who call themselves white are not going to be judged. Right? This is Zechariah 2:8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. You slaughtered the chosen people of God. Right? You abused the chosen people of God. If a person comes and punches up your son in which you love, what are you going to do to that guy when he's finding your hand? You're going to fuck him up, man. So with that, I'm going to play a clip, well, a soundbite from the seminar, man.
As murdered, there were only children examining the open testimony. And 70 Africans, many of them children and young adults, had been crowded under the small deck of the brig and sent on their way to Cuba, almost certainly consigned to the house of Pedro Martinez and Company of Havana and Cadiz. When the ship came across HMS Snake, 64 of them had died. And by the time the Africans were landed in Montego Bay 11 days later, 74 more had passed away, in spite of all the attention given to them by the assistant surgeon of the Snake, who had accompanied Lieutenant Miller to the ship. After landing 66, more of them died within a week or two. Upon their arrival in Jamaica, John Robin, the collector of customs at Montego Bay, who was the first to receive them, was just as perplexed as Captain Milne had been before him. In a letter sent to Commodore Peter John Douglas months later, Robin recounted the horrible state of disease and emaciation prevailing among them, explaining that the ties of many were not thicker than his own wrist. More alarming, however, was a revelation that many of the slaves made soon afterwards.
Yep. Here is the important point.
In various occasions, upon their arrival, and over the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and young adults, told repeatedly and to different people that one of the Africans on board the Arrogante had...
So he's saying most of the kids on the ship told countless accounts of the exact same account, right?
Had been murdered, and that of risk. More alarming, however, was the revelation that many of the slaves made soon afterwards. In various occasions, upon their arrival, and over the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and young adults, told repeatedly and to different people that one of the Africans on board the Arrogante had been murdered, and that subsequently the sailors had cooked pieces of his body and served them with rice to the rest of the Africans.
So, There was one Jake on that ship, but there's countless accounts in history as well. He got chopped up in pieces and served with a side of rice, man. With a side of rice. With a side of rice to the other slaves on the ship. Then the actual guys who manned the ship ate his heart and liver and threw his head in the sea, man. You Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans need to wake the fuck up, man. That this so-called people who call themselves white, if they go back to the sea of Esau, they're your fucking enemy, man. You want to talk about, oh yeah, we should have peace and love, you know, yeah, tranquility, let's all be one. Your black ass, right, was on a ship and they chopped up your pieces of your body, served you with a side of rice, threw your head over the course of into the sea, and ate your heart and liver, man.
Although Robbie, Lieutenant Miller, won't open up the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and young adults, told repeatedly and to different people that one of the applicants on board the Arrogante had been murdered, and that subsequently the sailors had cooked pieces of his body and served with rice to the rest of the Africans. It's a revelation that many of the slaves made soon afterwards. In various occasions upon their arrival, and over the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and young adults, told repeatedly and to different people that one of the Africans on board the Arrogante had been murdered, and that subsequently the sailors had cooked pieces of his body and served with rice to the rest of the Africans. Although Robbie, Lieutenant Miller, and others who would come into contact with them remained skeptical throughout, others, including the collector of customs and Lucia, a coastal town west of Montego Bay, Lyndon Howard Erling, the senior magistrate of Hanover, Alexander Campbell, and the special justice of peace in the same place. This one directed towards the sons for the British authorities, one of them, a grown-up man called Mina, who according to all descriptions given by them was not a black man, but a yellow man, was forced to drink alcohol, and then after being taken behind the sail on the boat, he was slaughtered. Although some minor specifics of the testimonies of these witnesses are inconsistent, as you would expect, most of them agreed that the man cried out for help as he was being killed, and that his blood remained on deck until the next day. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown overboard, and then the rest of him was cut into little square pieces and served to the rest of the Africans on board as food. Furthermore,
See?
Or, in a very revealing testimony, him was cut into little. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown overboard, and then the rest of him was cut into little square pieces and served to the rest of the Africans on board as food. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown overboard, and then the rest of him was cut into little square pieces and served to the rest of the Africans on board as food. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown overboard, and then the rest of him was cut into little square pieces and served to the rest of the Africans on board as food. Some witnesses claimed that his head, hands, and feet were cut off and thrown overboard, and then the rest of him was cut into little square pieces and served to the rest of the Africans on board as food. Furthermore, in a very revealing testimony, one witness stated that Mina's heart and liver were also cooked and then eaten by the Portuguese sailors. If we assume, one witness stated that Mina's heart and liver were also cooked and then eaten by the Portuguese sailors.
So, his heart and liver got also cooked, and the Portuguese sailors ate them. But wait, there's more. This is an excerpt from a book. White cannibals, black martyrs, fear, depression, and religious faith, and causes of suicide among new slaves. Alright? I'm gonna just skip to the point. When Aluada, Equano, and Igbo boy shipped to the New World in 1756 at the age of 11, first boarded as slaver and saw the downcast of blacks chained near to a copper pot. So he actually saw a bunch of slaves chained to a pot, man. They were chained to a copper pot. This is in a different account around 100 years before the account of SpiritOfHumility took place. So this proves to you it was a common thing, right? At the age of 11, first boarded as slaver and saw the downcast of blacks chained near a copper pot. So they were chained to a pot in which the coastal vessels kept fires burning as a proper halitic measure. Let's look at that word, proper halitic. Intend to prevent disease. So basically, alright, cool. But we already proved that these things did take place. It says, he fainted in horror and anguish. Revived, he asked the local slave merchants aiding in the loading if he were not to be eaten by these white men with horrible looks, red faces, and loose hair. So this Jake was actually afraid to be eaten, man. Although he was reassured he was not, he remained convinced, along with the rest of the cargo, that ultimately he would be eaten by these ugly men. See? So these people always try and say, these guys are slaves and savages and beasts. But there's accounts in history of them actually eating us. They actually ate us. Man. But don't worry, man. Because all that took place because we unbroke the Lord's statutes and commandments. And it was of his will. But just because it took place, that don't mean you ain't gonna get judged, man. This is Nahum chapter 1 and 3. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord, that's right, man. The wicked is Esau. The Lord said he ain't at all gonna fucking acquit you, man. Amos chapter 1 and 11. Thus saith the Lord, how about Shai? For 3 transgressions of Edom and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof. So the Israelites, you trying to say, so the Edomites can be saved and so on and so forth. Look, man, you're a coon, man. Through spirit, the Lord guided me unto an account of them actually physically eating you, and you will have mercy upon them. Because he did pursue his brother with the sword. And look, he pursued us to the sword to the point we actually became a prey. Where some of us got fucking put in pots and eaten, man. And did cast off all pity. and his anger did tear perpetually, and he's kept his wrath forever. And that hatred between Jacob and Esau is here unto this very day, man. But when that's why when we're established in the kingdom of heaven, we ain't gonna have any mercy upon you, man. Right? And we gonna do double unto you in righteousness, man. This is Psalms 137:7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem. You said, raise it even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. Happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones, man. And that's what's going to happen in the kingdom of heaven when we obtain that power, man. You know? And we ain't going to have any mercy upon you. This is Baruch 4:25. My children, suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon you. That's why the scripture says, will wait ye upon me until the Lord rise up unto the prey. Right? Suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon you from God, for thine enemy have persecuted thee, but shortly thou shalt see his destruction and shalt tread upon his neck. And know you fucking Edomites, man, all you people call yourselves white, if you go back to the seed of Esau, you're going to receive that judgment without any mercy, man. And I say for scriptures, man. The scripture, as the scripture says here, we shall see his destruction and shall tread upon his neck, man. Right, so with that, I'm saying all praise be to Abba Shema Shai, double honors, apostles and elders of GreatMillStone, and Lord willing you brothers to be edified. Shalom.